Hello. Do I have to have an intro at this point? I feel like, hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Natalie. Welcome to the Natalie Evans channel, where I have a podcast and rant about things. I guess that works. So there's your intro. If you listen to the podcast and the video, or watch it on the channel, I guess, then you know I'm recording on the same day, but efficiency, is that what we're gonna call it? Honestly, I don't know, but seriously, I have a lot of steam built up, which is coming out in my hair. That's why it's frizzy. As an avid consumer of YouTube videos and someone who has a lot of opinions, I have reached my wit's end with the argument or the approach to people who are protesting or trying to educate, bring awareness to Black Lives Matter and also MMIW movements and things that are going on in our communities, and responding with things like, I see that you are dying and hurting and in pain, but could you be a little less uncouth? Could you have better manners when you're telling me that you're hurting? Could you be a little less angry? You know, I don't think my blood pressure can get any higher. I don't think I could probably hate that argument any more than I already do. And I am giving it attention because it seems like a very common cop-out, honestly. Instead of confronting your discomfort or confronting any of the probably myriad of emotions that people might have brought up when they look at systematic racism, especially in the United States, we get tone policed, but also people using other civil rights leaders against the communities they were speaking out for to show us how we should be responding. You know, if I were a doctor and you came into the ER and I was on duty and you were hurting in agony, barely conscious, writhing on the gurney, can't really articulate to me what's wrong because you're in that much pain, I'm not going to sit there and be like, now, ma'am, I need you to calm down, stop crying, tell me very nicely where you're hurting, and be extremely polite, or I may not treat you at all. I mean, I wouldn't. If I did do that as a doctor, I'd be fired, hopefully, but we all know that's not how life goes sometimes, especially from my own experiences. Just wait until I show you my hospital bracelet collection. It's a thing of beauty. But regardless, I cannot stand this mentality, and I don't understand how people think this is okay, how we get here, how this seems like a very reasonable thing, other than it being a cop-out. It's very easy when you see these protests and protesters getting killed and non-protesters, Black people existing, getting killed, and how much emotion is involved in that, seeing what you have to do and go through, possibly get tear gassed, possibly lose your job, have people ridicule you on Facebook if you protest and speak out. That is a lot to ask of someone who's not hurting, I suppose, but it is easier to put yourself in a better situation rather than face all of that for the sake of another human being, I suppose. So it's easier to attack how someone is expressing pain, attack how someone expresses anger and desire to change, and being absolutely frustrated with the things that are happening, telling that person to say it more calmly so that you don't feel attacked. it's just so tacky. It's so tacky is not the word I want to use. It is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And I think that in the past, a lot of us have had to have tolerance for this kind of argument, because I know, especially growing up in the South, as I grew up in Arkansas, that there were a lot of people, if I started talking about racism, if I started talking about things that I observed or things I experienced, someone would always be like, why do you have to make it about race? Why do you have to talk about race? You know, I think they said that, but it might not have been racially motivated. You know, when they glared at you like that and followed you through the store, it might not have been about that. You know, when someone came up to you when your hair was curly and stuck their hands into your hair and said you have a nice fro and they like your curls, that's not racist. Because my body is public property, I guess. I cannot be the only one done with this argument. But having lived in the South, you are fully expected, when confronted with these kinds of reminders to keep decorum, you are expected to calm down. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm going to take a breath, Karen. And while you also recover from me insulting you somehow, I'll regroup and present my feelings with more pleasant tone and very politely tell you that, could you please stop killing us and support murderers? It's kind of scary and inconvenient, and I don't want to think about losing another family member or going to a store by myself out in the boonies in the dark and just like not coming back. So like, could you please vote or support legislation that actually protects everyone at the very least? You know, I don't. The time has come and gone for that. Honestly, I'm done. What else has to happen for people to stop policing our speech and reactions and actually focus on the situation at hand? I know that we talk a lot about white people, and it's not all white people doing this. And frankly, I don't care, because if we were to talk about another crime like stealing, let's do that, because that hasn't been, I think, flagged is a word you can't say yet. But if we look at people who steal, thieves, when I talk about stealing things from Walmart and how we really need to address packaging, or what kind of bags people bring into stores, which is not by position, but an example I'm using. If I want to talk about that, and someone said, but not everyone that goes to Walmart steals, is that going to fix everything? I don't think so. People are still going to steal from Walmart, okay? So the problem of people stealing from Walmart needs to be fixed and addressed. So I have to talk about it to raise awareness and make people want to do something about it, to change. So that whole argument really, to me, just sounds like, I don't care. When you look at someone who's hurting, and that's what this is at the end of the day, like Black and Native communities in the United States are bleeding and dying. I don't know anyone at this point who has not either had a dangerous encounter, had a family member who's had a dangerous encounter, or has lost a family or friend at this point. And to look at someone in that situation who is trying to fix things however that needs to happen, and to say, I understand that you don't want a pipeline through your native land, and that it's breaking treaties, and it's putting your water sources and food sources at risk, and a host of other things. I understand that you don't want the pipeline, but the thing is, could you not block the people who are just trying to do their jobs? What you're saying is you don't care. The years of watching people protest the Dakota Access Pipeline and have tanks and the military mobilized against Native people who were peacefully obstructing the land that they were protecting that belongs to them, and have people just like, you won't get hurt if you just let them do it. Of course, but at what cost? You wouldn't do that. You would not be okay with that. I don't know. Like, what does it have to take for people to understand how crazy that mindset is? It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me. And now that Mauna Kea has kind of gained traction, which COVID has really messed up the way people have been able to resist what's happening to Mauna Kea in Hawaii. I mean, hopefully, if you know what's going on over there. But I've been following that situation for years. They have been trying to build that complex on sacred land for years, and people have been protesting for years. And people have the audacity to criticize, to take advantage of everything that it is to be a Native Hawaiian. There's a word in Hawaiian that doesn't quite translate. It's pono, and I think that this way of living, of facing adversity, of living righteously and standing up for good and moral things no matter what's being thrown at you, is being used against Native Hawaiians. And that is sickening to me, because you have all of these people on their moral high horse telling us to uphold their morals, but then at the same time completely disregarding the morals of a different group who happen to be causing minor inconveniences. I say minor because there were other countries that offered to have the telescope that would have offered the same, if not better, circumstances for the scientific research that people are trying to conduct. So this is something that I know for sure I have talked about a lot on the podcast. There are a lot of minority groups who culturally have this pride, who have this very strong cultural sense of being, of staying on the highway. They go low, we go high, in different words. And obviously that's a really simple summation of these cultural practices or beliefs. And there's no way, honestly, to frame this kind of reaction or position that isn't saying that you don't care. And I really need people to care. How many videos do you have to see of people being killed by police officers before that matters more? I think that if you have family, which dealing with family, loved ones who are not in a very understanding place is incredibly difficult. I don't say that lightly. I was on the phone for like 6 hours when all of this started, crying, because that's what I do when I'm angry, and arguing with someone that is very close to me about Black Lives Matter and systematic racism and Trump. And so I understand how hard these conversations can be. If you are having a family member who is being obstinate or has this kind of position, if you can talk or try to talk to them, reason to them with them, that's great. If you can't, like, I get that too. But honestly, maybe saying something like, I understand that you are coming from a place that is not hateful, hopefully. But here's what this sounds like to me. Here's how this mentality isn't going to help anything change. And maybe take it from there, but honestly, I don't see how people who are very comfortable saying these kinds of things can change. And that's going to be a very interesting thing to see moving forward, because as much as I like to think our tolerance is going down, we are facing a system that's built against us. So seeing how things change, if people change, where we can hold people accountable successfully will be very interesting to see. And if you have any advice or experience talking to family members or loved ones that you don't want to completely alienate about these kinds of things while keeping true to your beliefs, that would be very interesting to see. I just really wanted to talk about that, because before I talk about any other idea or progress that I'd like to see happen in society, I have to kind of address this, because this is my biggest roadblock, I guess. This is the one position that I really can't stand. I can work with racists. You have these racist beliefs, and I will present you with alternative facts. I don't want to use that phrase. I will present you with facts, and if you continue to not follow the things that I believe are true, then you are gone out of my life. That's cut dry, very easy. But when you have these kinds of things that masquerade as reasonable positions, it's sometimes a little harder to draw that line. And I can very indiscriminately end up, okay, bye, you're out of my life, or ending up in torment over it mentally for months and months. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. Vote. November is coming. Make sure you, if you haven't already had your local election days, then look them up. Look them up if you didn't vote. Then you'll know what time it is. Make sure you're voted. Make sure you're registered to vote. I'm losing my mind, but we already knew that. I will see you guys later. I hope you have a great week. Look forward to another episode. If you're following It Some Kind of Brown on all platforms, you can find me in the social media links below. This is how you're supposed to close a YouTube video, right? Drink lots of tea, because our stress levels are not guaranteed to get any lower.